Hello and welcome back here at Feeling Terrific. Today there's a conversation with Christina Boesenberg. Christina Boesenberg is currently a managing director at BCG Brighthouse. We will talk about a very interesting topic. It is about working internationally. We will have a look how this experience shaped her career, but not just her career, furthermore her as an individual. So let's see, and I wish you a great, authentic conversation. Hello and welcome back here at Feeling Terrific. Today I have a very special guest with me, Christina Boesenberg, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly. We do have
Absolutely.
we do have a very interesting topic today. It's about working internationally and what comes along with it. And I'm very thankful that you take the time, Christina, and also that we can have this conversation today. Maybe over to you for the first question, and I think also the most difficult one. Who are you?
Who am I? When you're not looking, I'm just a waveform is my normal answer to that. Who am I? I'm probably a very diverse and faceted personality with many areas in life where I'm playing. I'm a human being, a mother, a friend, hopefully, somebody who's trying to keep spirits up, meet like-minded persons, find tribes, and rock the world together. And then I'm also managing director at BCG Brighthouse. Brighthouse is a BCG brand for purpose and culture development.
So quite an interesting background, and it aligns quite good, I would say, to the topic we discussed today. Maybe you also just mentioned it, right? So purpose, where you're currently working, but also what does mean purpose to you?
Purpose is the fuel that energizes most people, especially me, to do what they are doing in their lives. So for me, like for most of us, it's definitely something that keeps me going, keeps me rolling, even if the going gets tough. As I said, I'm a mom, I'm a family member. I'm also rocking a lot of things in my life. So, and purpose keeps me up. So my personal purpose is pretty much in the direction of change and transformation. So and it's changing over time. At the moment, it has to do with transforming our society in terms of democracy and a more easygoing life for everybody.
Yeah, and how does that reflect in your current role as a managing director? I mean, managing director can mean everything, but what is it for you at the moment?
You mean what purpose means in that role?
Not necessarily, but also maybe if you can give us a short brief of the role as a managing director, because managing director can be also something can be used inflationary.
In my case, it's pretty easy. You are responsible for a business and leading a lot of people, leading a business together with a counterpart, being part of a wider network of MDs and partners. So and being responsible for commercials and also for people.
Yeah, and as you also just asked about it, coming back to the purpose, maybe let's combine purpose in this context with leadership. What do you think? What role does purpose play in your leadership?
My leadership. I mean, for me, it's pretty easy, as I've been in business for 25 years now, and I started my career at a global player. Siemens at that time still had a big tech sector. Today is today again, but I started as one of the few women in tech. So diversity and female empowerment has always been a topic, so I made my way through at 20 years ago, completely male world and environment, which was okay for me, but not for everybody. And so diversity in all its dimensions and equity, inclusion, and has a lot to do with my personal purpose, but also with the way of leading teams and leading people. And it influences my daily actions as well.
Yeah. So you also just mentioned when you started your career, right? So you were entering kind of a male-dominated work environment. Do you remember how did you feel when you started in that environment, and what impact?
I mean, I was pretty naive. So I was hired. It was a good time, 1999 or something. And the internet bubble hadn't exploded at that time. So it was all very exciting and tech innovation all over the place. And I had a pretty good start. Being promoted very early and exciting project. So I was really focused on what I was doing and on the innovation piece. That was fascinating. And of course, great colleagues. And I went to Munich from Hamburg. That was a big shift. At the same time, I have to say, looking back in hindsight, I'm a first gener, so I didn't have any insight into large corporations or into academia, and it was just that there wasn't a pre-assumption to what that needed to be. So there was nothing in my head. I was completely naive in very positive terms. So I didn't struggle at first. The struggle came when I was successful and made my first career steps, like 1.5, 2 years in the company when I had the hard learnings.
I can really, I mean, obviously I didn't have the same path as you, right? But I think I can relate also kind of to it because I had a similar, situation here at ServiceNow where I currently work. And it was also, I was quite naive and going into it and taking everything on. And then for me, for example, I don't know how it was for you, but then somehow I realized where I am and what I did and what I achieved and so forth. And then there was a moment when it was like, okay, how do I deal with it? I don't know. I cannot describe this situation or the moment, but yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I plan to stay for 2 or 3 years and then go into consulting, but it turned out to be 11 years. So, and that's an interesting piece because it was so exciting and so interesting, and of course a global role. And I went to China for 3 years back and forth, and doing innovation in the Southeast Asia market. So it was all exciting and it was a good time, and very young, and so I was thrown into ice cold water, which I didn't perceive like ice cold water, only in hindsight. And I think that's maybe also a secret or a life hack I can share here, because think less, do more. I think it's in some situations it's way easier to approach things with a lightness and a bit of naivety. It's not possible in my role today, but in the earlier phases of a career, probably. So if there is a bit of lightness, joy, and ease, it makes things easier.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really great shout out. And so you're also currently a member of Mission Female. Maybe you can tell us what it is and why are you participating?
Mission Female is a highly elaborated network of successful female leaders in the industry, and in all kinds of industry sectors, but also service industry. And we are like, I think we are close to 300 or 250 all over Germany, Austria. I think some female leaders from Switzerland as well. And what we're doing is connecting, supporting each other. We have a lot of learning and development things going on a high level. Everybody who is within the Mission Female Network has a leadership position. So we are exchanging, we are supporting each other. That's probably one important piece. But the other thing is also to do a lot of public relations and bring things to the surface and support younger women. Female empowerment is a big thing.
Yeah, coming to empowerment in a sec, but if you would have to nail it down, right? So mission female. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume mission female as the purpose per se is quite successful. What do you think does make mission female successful?
The great community, the great female leaders, friends, business friends, who all are 100% committed to supporting each other, to achieving more on the diversity scale, and also to really make a difference.
Yeah. And coming back to the empowerment piece, what do you think about empowerment?
It's an interesting question. For me personally, I'm one of those activists. When I was younger, I didn't even care for empowerment. I just did what I did and did my thing. A lot of energy. Really, somebody who's asking for regret later, or saying sorry later, rather than not doing anything. So I was. Today it's different. Today I see one of my core purposes is empowering younger colleagues, predominantly female colleagues, but also from other diversity dimensions. And empowerment became a very big topic in my life, and I'm totally committed to empowerment. For me personally, I was always empowering myself, and that's probably my second hack that I can share. It all starts with empowering yourself. Honestly, it starts with the face you see in the mirror every morning when you get out of bed, and the high five you give to yourself. That's the basis, the foundation of all empowerment.
Yeah, so it sounds, to be honest, objectively speaking, quite simple, but also kind of underestimated. Am I not right?
Underestimated in terms of what?
Yeah, so for example, what you just mentioned, right? So for example, the simple thing, waking up in the morning, have a look in the mirror and say, hey, this is me, this is inspiring, whatsoever, right? So it sounds quite simple and kind of, it doesn't matter. For example, if you have a look in the morning into the mirror, but on the other side, as it is so simple, it can be also quite underestimated.
Oh, yes. Of course. Nobody does it. Absolutely. That's why I'm saying it. That's the starting point. That's the foundation. I mean, nobody can empower you if you are refusing to be empowered, or if you have a bad, if you keep telling bad stories to yourself, if you have a diminishing mindset, nobody can empower you. And that's why I said it's the starting point.
Yeah, and then you also mentioned that in the beginning of your career you weren't thinking like you do today, right? Do you remember, maybe it was kind of floating, but do you remember the moment where the change happened and how did it come?
For me personally, it's still the same. I'm just a very proactive personality, and if I need support, I normally ask for support. And I always was very honored and lucky to have people who were kind of mentoring me formally and informally, helping out. For me, it hasn't changed.
Yeah. Maybe let's go to a different topic, working internationally. So when did you start working internationally?
I would say 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah, and then how did you feel being confronted with this kind of working environment, which can be quite special?
Yeah, it was interesting because for me, and when I was in my very early 30s, or I mean, I think even below that, I was completely thrown into a different culture. It was Chinese culture. Of course, I had worked internationally to have a keynote at a conference or something. But this everyday working and being relying on people to deliver their work or being part of a team, that was in the Southeast Asia market. So it was not like going to France or going to Switzerland, but it was going to Shanghai and going to Beijing. And that was interesting. It was really, for me, it was fascinating. I loved it. I was totally taking the challenge. And yes, it was a challenge. I had to really learn. I mean, I was the only female in place. I was the only engineer. My background is psychology. I'm a psychologist, and also, of course, did the economics at Siemens when I started. But engineers, male, Chinese, or Asian, and then me. It was so funny, a very intercultural experience.
Yeah. So two things. So first, you are fluent in Chinese still, I believe, and
of course.
And second, with all the experience you just mentioned, right? So how did this? What kind of impact did it have on you personally?
I learned so much. My learning curve was so steep, you can't imagine. I think it was one of the most challenging times in terms of learning. The second time was when I got kids and my daughter was born. But anyway, in China, I learned every day. I learned about leadership. I learned about intercultural differences. I learned about this unconscious biases we have. I learned that my spontaneous behavior as a person, but also as a leader, was not adequate. I needed to really unlearn a lot of things, learn new behaviors, be non-authentic just to survive, learn completely different kind of informal language. It was very, very interesting and a lot of learning.
It sounds like paradise to me, to be honest.
Well, yes, it's exhausting at the same time.
Yeah. Would you considering doing something like that again?
My youngest is still at school, so no.
Yeah.
And maybe, do you mean afterwards? I would probably go to Spain or to a European country to kind of have two homes and work from two homes. That's definitely something I'm thinking about, and that will happen over time. But an expat position or going onto another continent, no, because my kids are in Europe.
Yeah, and regarding the learnings you had when you were in China, right? Do you have still one thing which still sticks with you?
Oh, many. No, not one. Many.
We have time.
I mean,
we can go through everything.
Yeah, basically, well, people are different, and that's not a phrase, but that's how it is. And if you want to achieve anything, you need to really adopt in a business context. I'm not talking about private life, but probably is pretty similar. But if you want to achieve anything in a team or with individuals, you really need to adopt and find the sweet spot between persons. So where are they clicking and ticking? What's important to them? What's their motivational factor? How can I really get through?
Yeah. So,
and then the second big learning, and that was pretty clear in China, but also had a huge influence on my career. It was this the illusion of evidence. This is something that I think we should all deeply understand. The illusion of evidence means that we all take things for granted. That we believe, we learned, we have in our history, we have an assumption, we have a conviction. This is like ABC. The sky is blue. Dogs are brown, whatever. I'm making it up here. But and then for others, it's not. Only because you think the sky is blue doesn't mean anybody else thinks the sky is blue. And to really digest it, not only, I mean, we would all probably sign that and say, yes, of course, correct. But to really have that in your DNA and in a stressful day, to be present with that's really important.
Yeah. Do you have an example for us where you were kind of confronted with a different, with a different culture? So obviously not sharing.
Every day. I think I answered that already. In China, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
When I was confronted with a different culture?
Yes. So was just asking, of course, you are still confronted every day and so forth, right? But maybe especially when you had to look back to your time in China, do you have one example where you were quite naive, or if you want to use a different kind of a wording, where it was really kind of clashing, kind of.
Yeah, very absolutely. Every day it was clashing, but very early, for example, there were these offices where people worked in a community office, a large room, and I was like entering non-hierarchic as I am. I was a kind of the project lead, and said, "Hey guys, and what are you doing now? And like, can we do it like that?" Or I had an idea. I was sharing my idea, and very casual, very like on mutual level, yeah. And it was totally not appreciated. Silence, no. They love hierarchies, really love their hierarchies. They need it as guardrails. They want that. And don't break the hierarchy. I was struggling with that for a long time, but that's obvious every day.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, and but I'm glad that you're still having this, so that you're very approachable, right? I mean, I reached out on LinkedIn, and you weren't saying, "Hey, where's your title?" or whatsoever. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah,
the Chinese didn't like it so much. No, but I don't want to exaggerate. Please be aware that's 20 years ago. It's not. I mean, it changed a bit today.
True. Maybe if you would summarize your experience, kind of, right? So what would you say? What are the advantages and disadvantages of working internationally?
I mean, personally, I see such huge advantages for your personal development in terms of learning every day, steep learning curve, really confront, you can't get out. If you're working internationally and you have KPIs and you have targets that you need to fulfill, you cannot get out. You need to do it. You need to work with people who are completely different, who have a completely different mindset, who have no idea what you're talking about, who really want to achieve goals in a different way than you are used to do it, and so on and so forth. So this is, for me, I loved it. Many people find it really exhausting and stressful. So you have to know yourself. It's a balance. And I think nowadays I'm working internationally very often, so I'm traveling back and forth. I love it, but people find it stressful. It's the same thing. For me personally, it's not a problem. Many people I talk to, also who approach me, who see me on LinkedIn, or good colleagues, or know what I'm doing, and they, "Oh my God, you're traveling such a lot, poor girl. Oh my God, how can you? You're so poor." So, well, I mean, for me, it's cool. Of course, there are phases where enough now, I need 4 weeks from home office, and I do that. I can steer it from my position at least like 95%. But I think it comes back to knowing yourself good enough to really say, I like working internationally. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, and what do you think? Why do people think it's kind of exhausting and kind of challenging? I mean, of course, it depends on the personality.
It starts with the flights. And I'm not talking about time difference. Time difference, of course, but it starts with like flights back and forth. For many people I know, also, no matter what age, it is important. They think that is very, very exhausting and stressful.
Yeah. So you have probably seen more airports than I do, or I did. But the most hectic one was for me the London Heathrow airport. So, but for you that might be a little bit a small one, but for me that was quite a big one. So I can imagine, what the people think. So you also mentioned it kind of that you are working in an international environment for over 20 years now. Would you say you are perfect in it? Or can someone say something like that at all?
Define perfect. What does that mean?
That's the question. So can I even use the word perfect, or is it in the wrong place?
What does it mean, perfect, in an international environment? What do you mean? I have no idea what you mean.
Yeah. So the question is, or the intention of the question is quite open, right? So I phrased it on purpose like that. And the question for me, for example, is, can I use the word perfect in this context? So, I mean, for example, is perfect doesn't even make sense, as perfect is, as you said, what does it mean? Is it individual? Can we objectify it? Or
Ach so, well, I would, the latter, you can't objectify it. It's about knowing yourself. Do you want that? It's a decision. Small children, not for everybody. Of course, a lot of traveling means you're not at home. And I know many people who love to be at home every evening, and that's fully okay. But you have to know, if for me, am I perfect in anything? No, not at all.
yeah. Did you know from the start what is important to you? Or how was that journey for you?
No, that's a journey. It's a journey of personal development and getting to know yourself. No. But
Yeah.
of course, I think everybody has a gut feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe coming to the last question. So regarding the last question, self-awareness, self-reflection, mental health, recharging, purpose. Buzzword bingo or what?
Very good. Buzzword bingo could be, or the core of success. Self-reflection, knowing yourself, purpose, your purpose, the company purpose. For me, those are the ingredients for success, be it as an individual, be it as a team or as an organization.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing your points of views, Christina. I really appreciate it. Also, thank you for your time. It was a real great pleasure. And maybe when you are in Munich, the coffee is on me indeed. And
yes.
Maybe
thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you also. It was my pleasure. Maybe over to you for the last words.
It all starts with yourself. As I said, it's one of my biggest hacks I can share. It all starts with yourself. Anything Christian and I discussed over the past 30 minutes, every question he posed, it all starts with ourselves. And not everything is for everybody, but it's super important that we very early in our lives, not only for career, but in our lives, find out what do I really want? What do I feel comfortable with? What's good for me? What's not so good for me? What am I willing to take and what not? That's the best hack I can share.
And thank you for that sharing. Having said that, thank you, Christina. It was my pleasure, and talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.